welcome to the dungeons. Dayman here. Today, we're gonna talk about making this spooky season a little less spooky as we traverse the darkness. But yes, we will be talking about essential settings to make the most out of these dark dungeons, as well as how to turn some of the creepiest enemies like the spider into mincemeat despite their tricky behavior. Not only that, but we will discuss essential tips on how to stay alive in these dangerous dark dungeons. So, how many times have you been in a dungeon and you find that somebody, some overzealous hero, has ran ahead with the torch, leaving you in the dark? I'm here to tell you, you don't need that torch. What do I mean? I can't see in the dark. Well, if you've played Dungeons and Dragons, then you know that whenever the DM says, "You've entered into a dark room," what do we say? I have dark vision. And yes, you too, adventurer, can have dark vision. How is it that you can acquire such an amazing skill? Well, I do not believe that the Live will capture my meta menus, but I will do my best to demonstrate. You will first enter into your Meta's Pause menu. From there, you will access your settings. From your settings, you will then go to Advanced at the very bottom. Under those advanced settings, you will find something that says Content Adaptive Brightness Control. Once again, your advanced settings has the Content Adaptive Brightness Control. When you toggle the Content Adaptive Brightness Control, that will allow you to be able to see truer blacks as well as brighter environments. From there, you then access your Display and Brightness menu. From the Display and Brightness menu, you can, of course, increase the brightness from there, but you're going to access the Adaptive Lighting feature. And from there, you will now have an extremely vivid environment. After accessing those settings for myself, it was like laying new eyes on the game. But that's not all. You can as well access your in-game menu. From there, go to your visuals, increase the brightness, and then from there, wowie, you can see in the dark. Well, let's say all that's a little gimmicky, and you kind of want to be more immersed in that environment without feeling as though you've cheated the game in some way. Well, there's something rather cool that you can do. Something very cool that you can do is to grab those potions in your pouch. I find that health and haste, as well as res, are quite good for this. You can round a corner and use those potions to illuminate the walls for you, helping you find your way around dark corridors. Even tossing them ahead to help you find where you are going. Acting like additional breadcrumbs to lead you through the dark. And with that, you have access to dark vision and were a resourceful adventurer. So, we've talked briefly about our settings, and I want to revisit at least one of them at this moment, and that is our arachnophobia. Just because you don't have arachnophobia is not a reason to turn on. It's not a reason to avoid that setting. What do I mean? Well, I'm not afraid of spiders. I'm some kind of tough guy. I've never been afraid of nothing. Well, maybe you wanted to be better at a fight. And that feature is going to make you better at a fight. So, how many times have you had a spider and throw a swing at it only to miss, or to not really be able to understand where its hitbox is? Well, the arachnophobia replaces the model of the spider, and its model encompasses the entirety of its hitbox. I used to think that it increased its hitbox, but I somewhat sat on this information until I was able to confirm whether or not that was true. And now I've learned that it does not increase the hitbox, but rather allows you to determine where that hitbox is by it fully encompassing it. So, that is a pro tip for a dungeoneer, even if you're not afraid of no little spider. Alright? So, with that in mind, two of the greatest fears in this game, the dark and the dangers, become slightly less scary and more manageable. And I know we are in this spooky season, so I thought I'd at least address some of the scarier elements of the game. But that does not necessarily mean that we are going to be done talking about what the dangers of these dungeons truly are. How many times have you found yourselves in a pickle? And by a pickle, I mean that all of your friends have gone down in the dungeon, whether it be through a lack of communication, poor luck, or just dang old difficult dungeons. Well, there is a tool that you can use, and I know some purists will argue against me.
Well, Dayman, actually teleporting is cheating.
It does make the game easier, but it's there for a reason, and you can exploit those reasons to get the most out of your dungeoneering. And if you're avoiding teleport just because you think it's cheating, you're actually cheating your friends, and I'll tell you why. Last night, I was in a dungeon, and everyone went down except for me, and we thought it was over, having to fight waves of bosses, and instead of panicking, I opened up my controls. And after opening up my controls, I had it here, and so I recommend going into your pause menu, turning on controls when you enter a dungeon, so this locomotion mode can be toggled. And from there, I click just to the left, and now I have teleport. And I was able to lure the enemies far away from my downed allies. And once the enemies were on me, I teleported past them, made it quickly to my allies, and was able to res them both before the hordes of enemies fell upon us. And let me tell you, it would have been the end of our dungeon run had I not done so. So, just because it makes the game easier doesn't mean it's a bad option. Gotta adjust my hat here. So, we're not done talking about locomotion, because there's a secret technique that if you have not unlocked, you've been nerfing yourself unintentionally. Once again, in your pause menu, under controls, you will see, for some reason it's not showing up on my menu anymore. Oh, because I am not in continuous. When you go into continuous movement, you will see Enable Auto Run. When you enable the Auto Run feature, that will allow you to move at your full speed without having to depress that joystick. That's going to not just save your thumb, but also help prevent a lot of that stick drift that comes into play by putting additional pressure on your Joy-Con. And these things are expensive, guys. Let's not damage them unnecessarily. With these features, you're going to start making the most out of your dungeoning experience, but there's one hidden feature that I've discovered about the Live tablet. When I was in a dungeon run with Durstwolf, we were talking about the Live tablet, and we learned something really cool. It allows you to share hidden information with your party. If you go into first-person view, the screen will remain black. However, if you want to show off a cool weapon model, or display your exos, or show the armorer's window to a lower level player who doesn't have all the weapon tiers that you do, you can start to take a picture. And during the countdown, other people will be able to see your screen for those 3 seconds, allowing you to share additional information in a dungeon. And if you can share more information, the more adequate you're going to be in a dungeon. So, how do you stay alive and mitigate the greatest of dangers, those being going down? I talked about it briefly using teleport, but there's actually one other hidden technique that you can use. Technically two, but the second one requires you to have a larger play area. The first of which is when you are using a resurrection potion. I'll have to fabricate one for us here. When you are using a resurrection potion, I recommend that you always open it immediately and hold it high above your head as you run through the dungeon. I'll tell you why. Because if you happen to go down in that desperate sprint to save your ally and you hit the floor, you'll drop that res potion, resurrecting yourself, assuming that you are not the only one up. If there's one other player up, at least, then you will be able to be rezzed with that potion. So holding it high above your head, always. And even if it doesn't shatter, which I recommend opening it so that it does, even if it doesn't shatter, you will then be able to leave a resource on the floor, helping others take care of that difficult resurrection. Now, here's a bonus tip for everyone who hates getting frozen or feels as though getting downed feels quite unfair. What you're going to do is you're going to make sure that when you play this game, you are playing in as large of a meta arena as you can. So increase your play area to the widest ability that you are able to. Because when you are frozen or when you are downed, you can still actually walk around your room, and the movement of your character will still be red, even though you aren't actually moving. So you can back away from enemies while frozen, and if you are downed next to a ledge that with a spike pit at the bottom, you can fall into that spike pit and take an environmental death and be brought right back up. So there's some hidden tech that's going to keep you alive in these dark and dangerous dungeons. Hope you learned something. Until next time, Dayman out. Wash your face, disinfect your face mask, baby.